Hello and welcome to the programme. Now, according to a recent poll conducted by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology, the Church is in the top 3 list of the institutions Ukrainians trust the most, the other 2 being the army and volunteer organisations. Now, almost 57% of the participants responded that they fully trust the Church. So will the creation of the Ukrainian Unified Orthodox Church influence this statistic, and how? Now, I'm pleased to say, to talk more about this, we are joined in the studio today by Dr. Svitlana Khutka, the Research Director of the Social Indicators Centre. Hello, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure to be here.
So before we start, I think it'd be good to listen to a soundbite from the President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko,
Sure.
and Filaret, who were speaking recently. So let's listen. Yeah.
Я Путіна в свій час назвав новим Каїном.
I once said that Putin is the new Cain. As Cain killed his brother Abel, Putin sends his troops to kill his brothers. But thanks to the creation of the United Ukrainian Orthodox Church, we have laid a solid foundation for our Ukrainian state. We've had enough of life in captivity. We want to live in freedom and democracy, to serve our nation and not fight with anyone.
І ми хочемо наголосити, я б дуже радий був це почути.
We are reaching out to all Ukrainians with love, with an open heart, because our goal is unity. We have no doubt that every Ukrainian will come, because it's a very simple choice. It's not a choice between patriarchates, it's a choice between Ukraine and Russia.
There we go. So that was Petro Poroshenko speaking about unity and the choice between Ukraine and Russia. So I guess my first question is, how has the level of trust in the Church changed in the long run, not just talking over the past couple of months, but since Ukraine gained independence in 1991?
Yeah, it's a good question. And if we're talking about the long-term studies,
Yes.
long-term service, we can actually figure out that Church is one of the most trusted institutions in Ukraine. It's very interesting because normally, due to some, social, economic, and cultural reasons, actually at the top of this pyramid, you would find family. You would find friends and colleagues, for example, and also it would be church for quite a long period. And, well, what is really interesting, scientists, so researchers, academic people, they are also very trusted if to be compared with church. But if you would go back to the religion, it's kind of became a very important part of social life for people here in Ukraine, especially after, gaining an opportunity to practice their beliefs after the fail of Soviet Union. And this also added a lot to this opportunity to develop, some very differentiated attitudes to the religion in Ukraine.
And can you tell me a bit more about the demographics of the Church? I mean, the sorts of people that go and how that influences their trust, for example?
Well, if you're talking about some demographics and also some, denominations, majority population, they are Orthodox, Christian Orthodox, but also we can add to them around 10-15% of people who do not define themselves as the Orthodox, but they also define themselves as believers. So it's not about the atheism or something like this. And if you're talking about the demographics, it's also, women, elder people, they are more, inclined to be more religious. At least if you're talking about the practicing prayers, for example, during, let's say last month, when survey have been done, that would be more about women, because 50-60% of women, they would be praying more often than, for example, men, because on the side of men, it would be only 30%.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not that emotional, which also doesn't mean that maybe they are not so religious, but maybe just practicing in a bit different way. It's like, still the question to talk about. And also main Orthodox churches in Ukraine are for sure Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Kyiv Patriarchy and Moscow Patriarchy. So it's a very interesting mix, actually.
Because this is the number of people that go to these churches and not necessarily the number of churches that they have. Is that right?
Well, we had several, these patriarchates. And people quite often have been, changing churches because it's all about the Orthodox Church. So you can go basically being, for example, baptized in the Moscow Patriarchate. You may go to the Greek Catholic Church, or you may go to the Kyiv Patriarchate Orthodox Church to pray, for example, or to practice some, religious celebrations and so on.
So has there been a lot of crossover between the churches in recent years?
We
or
can't
not really?
say that we know exactly in terms of statistics how many crossovers we have, but it quite often happens that you may find cases then, for example, in one family, if one half of couple they are family from Greek Catholic Church and other half would be, for example, from Orthodox Church. Kids could be baptized in Greek Catholic and Orthodox religion denominations, but it doesn't mean that they wouldn't, interchange churches at some point. So.
Yeah. Were there any statistics actually that surprised you when this particular survey came out? Anything that you saw where you were like, oh, this is not the trend, or perhaps it wasn't something that you were expecting?
Not really, because it was expected that after years when opportunity to practice your beliefs have been suppressed, people would actually, cherish the time when they go to do this openly. And all those celebrations, like Easter, for example, and Christmas, they are very important, and it's more about this level of maybe traditionality or secularity if you would jump to World Value Service, which measures many countries on this line, while Ukraine would be maybe more on the traditional side.
And compared to Europe?
Let's say, to Western Europe. If you would compare it, for example, to maybe Germany and so on, but on the other hand, Germany or maybe Northern Europe, they are not Orthodox. So again, it's about the type of religion, it's about the social, cultural, and historical factors behind all this mix of
all these different things combined, really.
Sure.
I don't know if you're in the line of predictions, but since the news came out that the new leader has been selected, do you think that things will change in the future, in the coming months? Do you think that more people will start to move to this new united church?
Well, first of all, things had changed already, because, well, definitely it's a very important historical moment. If we would, try to, somehow to understand the background of a history of religion in Ukraine and in Eastern Europe. It's a very important step, definitely not only in terms of religious life, but also at level of some political aspects. But when we are talking about the level of attitude to the unification of churches, I would say due to the set of surveys which actually have been done not only recently, but we can find the earliest in 2008, way before we could even imagine that we would have, this Cain-Abel situation. And people were quite positive about the creation of Ukrainian United Orthodox Church, while percent of those who were not okay with this idea was around 10 to 15 in different years. But also what is very interesting that the percentage of people who were not sure about the very concept or the very idea was also quite high. But if we would take the last study of October of this year, what we would have, first of all, 54% would support creation of the Ukrainian United Orthodox Church. Only 19% would be not okay with it. 19% would be kind of, we don't know, we are neutral, we don't care too much about this. And if you're talking about the regional differences, What we also have here is, for example, Western Ukraine, while almost 70% of people are cherishing this. If you're talking about the central Ukraine, like Kyiv and around, regions, then we have 60% of people who are actually admire the very idea of having the United Church. Southern Ukraine, 45%, and what is very interesting, even Eastern Ukraine, which for a long time been very secular in their beliefs, they had this very high percentage of people who just didn't had very, defined attitude to this.
Yeah,
they have changed this through time, and what we have right now, well, right now it's like almost 2 months ago, 37% of people were with positive attitude to the creation of such united church, because if you would jump to some other studies, what is very interesting, when people of Ukraine have been asked, what do you think about the, this ancestry and heritage of Kievan Rus? What country should be having this heritage? And well, majority of people are saying that, well, it's Ukraine and it's Ukrainian church because Kievan Rus church have been the predecessor of contemporary church.
And do you think actually people understand a lot of these issues, especially surrounding Thomas, but also around the history, the complexities of it? Is this something that you survey or can speak about?
That's a really good question. Well, as we know, due to some recent data, Thomas actually became one of the most, searched term on Google recently.
Yes, yeah.
And well, I believe that you also have been interested in what does it mean at some point.
Yes, because to be honest, until maybe 2 or 3 months ago, it was something that not even journalists really spoke about on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But when we are talking about the United Orthodox Church, it's pretty obvious. And this split between churches for a long time have been a pain for many people who believe, who are believers. And well, I still, very optimistic about the level of literacy, which is very high in Ukraine. And we have a lot of books about history, and this part about the, some religious issues and so on. They are also like a part of this practicing. When you go to church, you still, some background around and everything. So I think that's why people actually have been aware of what does it mean to have this, autokephal Ukrainian church, which would be the basis to unify many churches in Ukraine and to have our own church, which now is one of the world churches, actually joining this family of autokephal churches.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's very interesting. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us more about this topic. Thank you very much. That was Dr. Svitlana Khutka, the research director at the Social Indicators Center. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.